Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu. I'm coming to you not from Accra. I know, I crack myself up, folks. I'm coming to you from another of my often, roots in life. I am in the lovely city of London. And surprise, surprise, it's the same kind of weather as Accra. So raining season feels like, in Accra, feels like maybe it's summer here, but yeah, summer in the UK. Now I kind of get the relationship between people going to the UK during the summertime and leaving Accra because they're getting a little bit of better weather, but not necessarily. But I feel right. I mean, there's a little bit of more chill, but still, it's similar. The sky is still similar right now. But we're in for a hot weekend, and it's my birthday weekend, folks. I think this episode will probably air before the end of August, so at least you can send me birthday vibes to say, hi, happy birthday. So anyway, I'll talk less about myself and move into our conversation today, which is, I'm just so excited about it for a few reasons. One is that I have known this woman for such a long time, and I was just reminded of where she is now in life on LinkedIn. Gotta love LinkedIn, folks. And I said, wow, that story is amazing. And I think it's a story that our listeners, you folks, would be very interested in understanding more about and understanding about how this dimension of local citizenship is a reality for so many and can be a reality for so many. So let me get to her bio, and then we shall move into the details of this very special conversation. She has spent most of her 30-year career making complex things simple. She was on the forefront of launching technologies that today are foundational to our lives, including digital video recording, that's the predecessor to streaming content, the Internet of Things, now known as smart tech, and high design vape tech, which is a little bit to her embarrassment. But I tell you, vapes have changed the world. I mean, think about it. If there weren't vapes, we would still have to go to the dry cleaners all the time. So thank you for that. All right. So after living and working in the United States and the UK, she finished her career in San Francisco as senior director at Meta, leading the content design team behind Facebook and Instagram's billion-dollar ads business. Wow. At Meta, she was also a leader of the employee resource group Black at Design and founder of the Black at Content Design Leads Group. Since retiring last year, she's now turned her experience of leading people in solving hard problems into a career coaching people through the challenging process of planning for retirement. Her superpowers as a coach are being comfortable talking about money, being excited about other people's dreams, and creating systems that drive action. Serene Lewis Lyles, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here. It's so good to see you, Florence.
Yes, indeed, indeed, indeed. So our connection goes back to the early aughts, right?
Yes.
The early aughts, so 20 plus years. And
Yes.
and the bridge between us is a Stanford alum contact.
Yeah.
Jair Lynch, who...
Yes.
Very near and dear to me because, you know, we all grew up running the streets together, or the Stanford streets together at least. And then in DC.
Stanford streets.
Exactly. And then in DC in those early years. But yeah, so our connection where we actually first met is in New York, right?
Yeah. And I think we actually welcomed one of the aughts in by spending New Year's together.
We did! That is it. Yes.
Oh, maybe 07, maybe 08, but you know, who's counting?
I think it might have been 08.
Yeah. Does that sound right?
It sounds...
Feels good to me.
Right.
Feels good to me.
Exactly. But in any case, let's get into the conversation. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
So similar to you, and I was thinking about this the other day, I think we might have even talked about this at that New Year's Eve party, that I was born in Colorado and have spent a moderate amount of time there, but basically just think of myself as a Midwestern kid because both of my parents are the children of Air Force servicemen,
Mm.
and that makes them very rambly. They are Rolling Stones, and they kind of put that in me, which means basically by the time I went off to university, I had probably lived more places than your average person, not even your average American. I think your average person. I've lived in so many states. And then, as you mentioned in my bio, I've also lived in the UK.
Okay. So that's from where are you local?
So, where I am now, last year, my husband, my dog, which you can see in the background, and
Mhm.
I retired to Portugal. So, a lot of people I've noticed when they're talking about Portugal, they call it Lisbon. Lisbon is the capital of Portugal, but it is just the city. And we live about an hour outside of Lisbon. We live on a winery or a vineyard out in the countryside, which I never thought I would do. I've never lived in the country before,
Yeah.
but man, it is a whole vibe that I love so much.
I can imagine. I want to go so deep into that conversation. But before then, what is your craft?
So, my craft is at this point, it's still designing. So, that's what I did for my career.
Mhm.
But at this point, I am helping other people design what I think of as the next chapter of their lives. I think of it. As being a retirement coach, but retirement doesn't look like what you see in, I don't know, AARP commercials or Cialis commercials or
I mean,
maybe
look
what our
at you. You
grandparents
don't
did.
look like retirement, you know?
Right? No, I'm not learning ballroom dancing or whatever it is
Right.
that they seem to want older people to do.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's all about what's that next chapter going to be like? What are you going to do when you actually have the freedom to make choices with your life? And so my craft is designing that with people.
I love that. And so let's find out more, as I mentioned, about like how this has come to be to some extent. So why the where? How did you come to be living, working, and playing in Portugal?
Yeah. So when I was in my 30s, yeah, that sounds about right. And I was actually married to my now ex-husband. We had decided that we were going to retire. We had decided that we were going to retire when we were 50. And through all of life's changes, moved a couple times, got divorced, got remarried, all of that North Star stayed the same for me. When I met my now
Mm.
husband, Cliff,
Mhm.
his North Star was to work abroad again. So
Mm.
he's lived in the Philippines, the UK, Dubai. We met in San Francisco, and he was working in tech. I was working in tech. But for him, what he wanted to do is get back to living outside the States. As many folks who do live in the States know, sometimes there is a heavy backpack that just comes with living there. Even if you aren't thinking about the fact that you are a person of color, other people seem to be obsessed with it. And
Mhm.
so it just makes it so you always have that weight that you carry. You walk into a restaurant that you can perfectly afford to be in, and people give you a double take or side eye. For him, having lived abroad for a long time, he loved not experiencing that anymore. And I completely understood it. And so we melded our dreams and agreed that we would retire early
Mhm.
and move abroad. And so then we spent the next maybe 6 years traveling the world and
Mm.
seeing what we liked. And, we'd both traveled extensively before that, but it hadn't been with the eye of where would we make our next forever home. And so going places, we went to Italy together, love the food, love the people, love the language,
Mhm.
love the
Mhm.
style,
Mhm.
but their politics don't align with
Mm.
where we are in our lives right now. So that was a no, unfortunately, because man, that language is much easier than Portuguese. But, like, oh, you
Things
get to use
to
your hands all the
consider,
time.
right? Yeah.
Right? You got to think about the language.
Yeah, yeah.
I was kind of eyeballing New Zealand, but Cliff had a really good
Far.
point that if we were going to retire to New Zealand, we were going to have to probably work at least 5 more years just to be able to afford it. And
Mm.
there aren't a lot of Black people there.
At all.
We spent a week in Auckland and we saw the same Black guy 3 times. And it stood out because he was the
Wow.
only Black guy that we saw aside from
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was a no.
Mhm.
The list goes on, but just because sometimes people ask what was our number two, it was probably Uruguay.
Mm.
It has such great, food, people, diversity. The climate is similar to where we are now, which is
Yeah.
similar to when we were in the Bay Area.
Right.
It feels very comfortable. It has an old feeling. It's a mix of being European and South American. So had lots of really good things going for it, but it felt too far away from friends, family in the States, and even from kind of things that we would want to do around it.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So we
Yeah.
came to Portugal, and Portugal checked every box that we had. And we were amazed at the lightning, the backpack that I was talking about earlier. When we're here, people care way more about the color of our passport than they do about the color of our skin.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
that it feels easy for that reason alone. And then, the cost of living is great, and the
Sure.
weather is great, and the food is great.
So thinking about how you decided what your Portugal was going to look like or be like, you mentioned not ever imagining living in the country or in a rural area. So then how did you, land with that as your home?
Yeah. So we initially planned on doing the Golden Visa,
Okay.
which Portugal has really benefited from establishing this program. They were actually one of the countries that was under sort of economic constraints in the EU because they were doing so badly for quite a while. They stood up this Golden Visa program, cut tons of investment, millions and millions of euros, if not billions. I haven't kept track lately. But they've just done really well from it's really revitalized the country because they don't tear things down. They either let it crumble or somebody comes along and revamps it. So
Yeah.
you would see a lot of 500, 600-year-old buildings that were crumbling in place, or somebody had bought them and were making them beautiful again, which was really nice. So
Mm.
when we chose Portugal, it was the last year that you could do the Golden Visa in a major metropolitan area or on the coast because so many people invested in Porto, Lisbon, and the southern part of Portugal, which is all beautiful beaches. And they weren't getting any investment in the interior.
Got
And so
it.
we recognized we're not going to be able to move on this quickly enough to buy in Porto, which we love, or Lisbon, which for us was already starting to feel a little bit maybe more tourist focused than
Yeah.
local
Yeah.
focused.
I've
And
heard.
so we decided that we needed to live within an hour of a major airport. We needed to live in a town that had a hospital because we do plan on aging in place. And we wanted to be a part of a community. And so when we were traveling around and looking at different parts of Portugal that qualified for the Golden Visa, we came out here and it was an instant win. It's calm. There's, a very active art scene in our local
I love it.
town,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there's stuff here. I think the only thing that we really miss is a movie theater
Oh,
because
okay.
that's something that we used to do a lot in the
Yeah.
States, and
Yeah.
our nearest movie theater is probably 30 minutes away. But otherwise, I always say that our town has one of everything. It has a chocolate factory, car
Ooh.
dealership, ice cream shop, tons of restaurants, lots of vineyards and wineries around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has everything you need.
I'm coming. That sounds lovely.
Yes,
I'm just like,
do
"Oh,
it.
Portugal's on my list." It may happen this year, but in any case, you're there and you're retiring in place. So I'm definitely coming. I love the country
Good.
and I love that you're on the land. And so tell us more about the process of purchasing land, right? Because that's a whole other thing. Different countries have different rules around people who are not natives owning, et cetera, et cetera. So tell us about that process.
Yeah. So Portugal makes it fairly easy to purchase. The the kind of 1-2 punch that we did was we bought a piece of land and then we built on it. And buying the land from when we chose it to signing the deed was maybe a couple months, which, compared to what we're used to in California, at least, you can see a house and close on it in 3 weeks if you've got all your money right.
Right.
So, we were a little bit like, oh, wow, it's going to take a couple months. Oh, okay. All right. I guess that's how it works. And we were we were doing it remotely anyway, so we weren't pressed about it. Building the house was supposed to take 15 months, according to our contract. It took, I think, from when we signed the deed to when we moved in was about 2.5 years. And it would have been longer, except for we actually moved here. So they told us it was
Ah,
going to be ready,
then
and
they
we
had to
said,
figure something
okay.
out, right?
Yes.
Wow.
And we came and it was like a cement shell. And they're like, yeah, we're almost done. And we're looking at them like, what are you talking about? But, the thing for us that I think that was a very useful introduction to the culture of Portugal. So yes, some things are very easy. It's different than, I know in Spain, if they haven't done it yet, they were talking about putting this 100% tax on foreigners buying property because so many foreigners were driving up prices and then they weren't contributing to the community. Portugal hasn't done anything like that yet, but they move at their own pace. And if someone tells you I'll have that for you on Monday, you don't know if that's the Monday that you're in or is that
Which
a
Monday?
Monday in the future? I was talking to our landscaper recently and somebody else had said, oh, I'll have that to you today. And I said, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be getting that today. And he said, well, midnight is 6 hours away. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, it's still today if they get that to you before midnight. I was like, oh, is that how you all think? Like, come
Yeah,
on.
something like that. A little cheeky.
Right. But all of that to me, we were very clear when we moved abroad that we weren't trying to recreate the States in
I
another
love
country.
that. Yes. So important.
Right?
So important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so just
Mhm.
because we really appreciate good signage or a contract that people mostly stick to or, timelines or whatever, like you take the good, you take the different and you
You
keep it
figure it
moving.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. So
Thanks.
a vineyard. So you're getting
Yeah.
into the land and enjoying making things. So tell us about that craft of, you didn't
Yeah.
mention the wanting to make to make house goods and that type of thing. So tell us how living and is the vineyard active?
So, yes, it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Thankfully, we are not responsible for managing it.
Okay.
It is part of, it's kind of a community.
So
And
like a co-op.
so,
Okay.
exactly. So, there are a lot of like, other people who either are here full time or who have a house out here on the vineyard that is more of
Okay.
like their weekend home.
Sure.
And then the vineyard itself is managed by a,
A manager
a,
company.
a separate entity. Yeah,
Oh,
basically. And
okay.
so we get from our ownership here, we receive 500 bottles of wine a
What?
year with our own label, which is super fun. This
What?
year, we kind of phoned in the label because it's our first year of doing it. And we're like,
Yeah.
let's just get this done. But we're really looking forward to really making it our own. We actually have a piece of art that we bought when we lived in the States that was on display as part of one of those big artist collectives that they do at the De Young.
Uh-huh.
And so we bought it and we bought the rights to it. And so I think next year that will be one of our labels and it's called 40 Acres and a Pit Bull.
I love it. That's
It's
dope.
a super fun
That's
piece.
dope.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's a
dope.
super fun piece. So I think
That is
next year
so
that might be one of our
fitting.
labels. Yeah.
Wow. Especially as Black
Yeah.
people moving onto land and then wow.
Exactly, exactly, yeah,
Ah,
and this
yeah.
is this piece definitely speaks to, like, us coming and staking our claim
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maintaining our Blackness while also being a part of this community.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Bringing that. Ooh, I'm
yeah.
coming. I'm coming.
Yes, do it. So that part, thankfully, we're
Yeah.
not having to handle because really, for anyone who's moved to another country where they don't speak your
Yes.
native language,
Yes. Yes.
there's a whole element that's a piece of work as far as if you are going to integrate,
Mhm.
you need to learn that language.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Mhm.
so for us, becoming a part of the community has been a part of designing this new life for
Mhm.
ourselves.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, my husband is a big cyclist, so he's joined the local cycling club. He goes out
Mm,
with that group of folks a couple times a week, does crazy long rides in the crazy heat.
yeah.
And for me, it's been a lot about, building my community that, I'm really intentional about making friends, making meaningful friends, maintaining those friendships.
Mm,
And then for both of us learning the language.
yeah.
And at the same time, we are doing things like we've set up a workshop, and my side of the workshop is a space where I can go and play with my hands, basically. So I
Mm.
make things out of leather,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
whether it's dog collars or accessories for carrying your tech around, bags, that kind of thing. And that's just a place where I can get completely out of my head and walk away with something that's like, okay, today I did actually achieve something.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about the language part, because I think that's also a very key thing that you mentioned is being able to be a part of another and learning their language. So how are you going about that?
Just to speak on the language piece a little bit, and I think this is what you're getting at. You could easily live, especially in Lisbon or the southern part of Portugal, you could live there and never learn Portuguese. Maybe you say good morning or good afternoon and thank you. And you can completely survive in those two areas. So for people who are thinking about Portugal, and who just don't want to learn a language or don't want to become citizens, I would say, bring it. Come on down. We'd love to have you. And at the same time, so much of what a culture or a community is communicated through how we communicate, right? I was joking earlier about if we would have moved to Italy, I could have used my hands, like how I like to
Mhm,
use my
mhm,
hands, because
mhm,
it's a
mhm.
very talk with your hands culture. Portugal's a little bit handsy, but not as much. And so even the way people say, one of the things that we love here is how many ways people greet each other.
Mm, mhm.
So if I'm out on our local walking trail, which is very popular in our town, and I love it, and there are now people and their dogs who I'm getting to know, it is rude to just say hola. Everybody says hola,
Ah,
bom dia, hola, boa
yes.
tarde,
Yes.
right? There's always two greetings, right?
Yes.
That shows that you're like, hey, I see you and I know what time it is. Hope you're having a good day.
Yeah.
And then if you're on the phone with someone, or if you are, having an in-person conversation, you're saying goodbye, it's considered very rude to just say goodbye and hang up.
Oh,
So
okay.
in the States, one of my uncles and I, we almost race each other to see who can hang up first. Like, okay, good talking to you. Bye. Boop. Right. But here it's, and I'll do it in English, but it's basically, okay, goodbye. Good talking to you. Gotta go. Kisses. Bye.
Oh,
And then maybe a couple more rounds of kisses goodbye. And,
wow.
and so those are the things that it's just like with language, if you're not bothering to learn the language, you're not hearing
That
how
all of that.
people
Yes.
interact with each
Yes.
other. You
Yes.
just hear, oh, all I need to say is hola, bom dia, and obrigada, and I'm good, versus hola, bom dia, and then obrigada, boa tarde,
Yes.
beijinhos,
Yes.
ciao, beijinhos, com licença.
Yeah. 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 It's like a whole poetry in
It
the
is.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like a
Mhm.
little dance, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
cha-chaing, you're
Yeah.
cha-chaing,
Mhm.
and if
Mhm.
I swing my hips, you swing your hips, and that's how we're all keeping it flowing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different, the engagement. Yeah. I think that's,
Yes,
yeah. Interesting. Oh, I love it. Okay. So
it's great.
you found your place, and I myself am also looking for a new next place. I'm not
Oh.
looking for forever home necessarily. I haven't decided on that yet, but a new next place. And so my listeners have been hearing I like Kenya, so I'm going to spend about 6 weeks there
Oh, nice.
in the early next year. And so when you were deciding, you gave your parameters kind of, but what were your proper parameters for how you were going to decide what was your next?
First of all, we were aware that we were retiring early,
Yeah.
and there's a whole conversation that we can have around things that you need to consider when you're retiring. This is something that I think about a lot because of
Yeah.
my coaching practice.
Yeah, yeah, and we will
But
definitely
with
talk about it.
all
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
yeah. And at the time that we were retiring, my husband's youngest was still in college, and we were paying for that. And so we were very thoughtful about what we were going to be doing and to make our dollars last as long as we plan on living. So cost of living was a core parameter. Climate was a core parameter. As my husband likes to say, living where it snows is a choice, and he's never making that choice again.
I heard
And
that.
right, he's like,
No.
which is, even when we were considering Italy, we were in Florence, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago. And, Florence is crazy, crazy crowded now. And it was medium crowded then, but it seemed more livable. And then we saw a photo on the wall of Florence, and it was winter and there was snow. And we were like, oh yeah, this is out. Not living here. Right. So climate was very important.
Yeah.
We drew, basically like
The
Tropic of
latitude,
Cancer,
yeah.
Tropic of Capricorn, like it has
Right.
to be in this range.
Yeah.
There had to be good infrastructure. So I mentioned earlier that Cliff had lived in the Philippines, and he initially was kind of rooting for, hey, we go back to the Philippines, money goes a long way, people are really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure is not
Yeah.
such that I would have felt comfortable aging there. Like being old in a country where sometimes traffic jams are 3 hours long is it's just not useful for me. Healthcare was very important to us, not just for being old, but for being retired. We know that the cost of healthcare in the States even is
Mm.
thousands of
Mhm.
dollars a month
Yeah.
if you're paying for it yourself. So that was really important. Food. My husband is a retired executive chef, and there was
Mm.
no way that he was going to live someplace where
Food
there
culture
wasn't
is no good. Yeah,
good
I get
food,
it.
good ingredients.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
whole conversation around just
Yeah.
how healthy we feel living here.
Mhm.
We cooked a lot in the States, of course.
Mhm.
I was raised by a chef. My husband is a chef.
Mhm.
So we both love to cook, but the difference in the quality of the ingredients here, it feels like I don't even know what we would have to do to gain weight. Like
Mm.
it
Mhm.
just feels like we eat
Real
as much as
life.
we did. Yeah, it's
Wow.
real food. It's old grains. It's high quality wine. Plenty of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So food culture was important, and community was critical.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this is not at all, the move. And this is something I think it's important to say. We didn't choose to leave the US. We chose to move to Portugal.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
still have lots of friends and family in the States, miss, weird things like Tide Pods. I know they're terrible for the environment, but I love them. There's lots that we love about the States.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful country, right?
Yeah.
I was just there recently, and I was in Colorado, and
Yeah.
Colorado is a stunner,
Oh my
right?
gosh, yes. Yes, yes.
But
Mhm.
we're not a community country. We're not a country where we
Mm.
think of ourselves as a cohesive group of Americans. We might
Yeah.
be
You're absolutely
we're
right.
not even, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was so important to us. We wanted to live someplace, and this is part of choosing to live outside of Lisbon and living in a small town. We wanted to live someplace where you could go to the town square in the evening and people are gathering, maybe there's a little band happening or just
Mhm.
people are chit-chatting. You always know where to find the town gossips. Like
Yeah.
we have that here.
Yeah.
And so all of that community feeling, and then pushing to actually make ourselves be a part of the community and be good members of the community.
Yeah.
All of those were things that we wanted to have the opportunity to do.
Yeah. I love that. That's so beautiful. And it's so beyond, I think the idea of what you really wanted to emphasize that you chose moving as opposed
Yes.
to you left a place, right? And so
Yeah.
I think what we have been understanding about migration is that for immigrants, it's kind of on two sides. So there is that choose versus the migrant that is, or the leaving versus the choosing. So I guess to
Yeah.
contextualize it, the migrants sometimes are choosing and the
Yeah.
immigrants are leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. We ever since we got our residency cards, we've
Yeah.
actually been describing ourselves as immigrants and not expats.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that, I think, is sort of that language difference
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
And so,
Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe migrants, because you think about migrant workers, and so
yes.
they're migrating by choice, right? And I
Yeah,
guess
they're
immigrants are,
coming.
yeah, and I guess immigrants are too, but they're leaving by oftentimes. Yeah, I don't know, but I hear you. Yeah, because no one
Yeah.
uses migrant in the same way anymore because of these,
Right.
right? Because these labels. But if we really go back to like the roots of the vocabulary, especially in English, I mean, I would love to know what the words are in other cultures because
Mm.
that's a whole other dynamic is when we talk about I notice, and I don't blame you, that there was probably not an African country that was on your list aside maybe South
No.
Africa, but I understand why,
Love South
because
Africa. Yeah.
yeah, but kind of not.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it,
I
but
mean, and again,
I mean,
it's been a minute since I've been there.
apartheid still has its hold on the culture
Yeah,
and that type of
but
what
it's
you're talking about, but
beautiful.
it is, it's
Yeah,
so beautiful.
yeah. And to, to get more specific into that as far as why there wasn't an African country in there. So I have only been to 4 countries in Africa.
Sure.
So I certainly can't speak to
Mhm.
enough of them.
Yeah.
But of that list that I gave you, the healthcare part and the infrastructure part were non-negotiable because we do plan on staying where we are forever,
Yeah. Yeah.
forever as long as we live. And so when we were looking at countries, just looking purely at data without even being there,
Mhm.
we had concerns that the infrastructure wasn't going to be what we needed it to be when we were
Mhm.
old,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that the healthcare wouldn't be as consistent
Yeah.
as we need to be. Balancing that with, we could have looked more perhaps at like Lagos, but Lagos being so big,
Yeah.
I think it would have been hard to navigate. It's like one of the biggest cities in the world. So like,
Yeah. And
it's a lot to move to like 15 million people or whatever.
right. And the traffic jams are still 3 hours, so no, you wouldn't.
Exactly, which is
Yeah.
a non-starter for me.
Yeah.
So those were the things that came up. We were even we did briefly talk about we didn't visit together. We
Mhm.
briefly talked about South Africa, and then they
Yeah.
started having the water issues.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm here
it's a
to work
mess.
on that. Hopefully someday we'll want to move, and but it's the reality.
Yes.
And so to your point, yeah, we got to work on it. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't move to Africa, but some of us maybe not as a retirement place, right? I'm here working to make sure that, and so I'm very engaged in the work of making it a place that potentially is that infrastructure strength, et cetera, et cetera. So I hear
Yeah.
you. I hear you. But
And when you're back, we're going to visit.
yes.
So
Yes,
not only
yes,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed. Okay, so let's talk about, when we typically think about retirement, we do think about the snowbirds and the people going and just, playing shuffleboard, all those things. But as as a fairly young people, you're a fairly young couple, you can still do everything. And how did you decide to, and many retired people also still have businesses and side hustles and things like that. So
Yeah.
first of all, you said an age, but you had a very, very high powered career that you decided to leave. So tell us about
Yeah.
how moving from being a journalist, right? Like that was your initial
That's
study.
what I studied. I
Yes. Yes.
never actually did it. So I do not want to claim that
Journalism.
really, venerable career. I was never that person. I did PR. I did the dirty
Okay.
side
So you were
of journalism.
communications has always been a big part of you though.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I'm definitely a word nerd.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk, okay. So let's talk about where your work in communications took you to a place of this high powered career in tech, and then how you decided to leave it, besides just making a pact with yourself, but other things that maybe influenced that decision.
Yeah. Although I have to say, if anyone, is like, how do you do it? A pact with yourself. If you're good at honoring pacts with yourselves, I say go for it. It's how I've gotten a lot of things done in my life.
Mhm.
It's just I told
Mhm.
myself I would, and so I guess I'm going to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, to kind of start at the beginning and then skip all the way to the end, I will say, so went to Northwestern University. It's fantastic school. I studied journalism there because I had an awesome guidance counselor in high school who told me if I wanted to work in marketing and communications, I should get a degree in journalism. So I'm the kind of person who, if you can go to the best, you do. And Northwestern is the best in journalism. And so that's where I went.
Okay.
I never planned on being a journalist. I know that even though I love asking people questions, I don't like making people uncomfortable. And I think good journalism requires being comfortable making people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That said, I will say I do love talking about money, which makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's to their benefit.
Yeah.
So knuckle up. Yeah. So that's where I started. I will say that where I ended, I never could have dreamed of. I never would have thought, talking about money, I never would have thought I would have financially been as successful as I was. Just, people who study journalism don't make that much money.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very grateful that the combination of hard work, being in the right place at the right time, being interested in the things that were relevant led to me having a career that was very successful in tech. And then I also, I don't know if it's how I was raised or what it is, but I have been a very good people manager. And so starting quite early, it's weird to think now that in my mid-20s I had a team. But, I'm sure there are people in their 20s who listen to your podcast who are like, yeah, I have a team. That's how it works. But even at the time, I was like, you're putting me in charge of people? But yeah, that, developing people, developing how people think about things and solve problems is so interesting to me as far as like, okay, how are you looking at this? Have you thought about looking at just make a little, maybe a 45-degree turn and look at it a little bit differently? Have you thought about how it will be received? And even in my retirement coaching practice, one of the things that I talk about with my clients is how will your retirement be received? And you wouldn't think that it would matter, but it ends up impacting how people feel about their choices. So, like I said, I was going to go to the beginning and go to the end. In the middle, there were multiple steps. I worked in public relations for a long time. Clients were Nike and eBay and Procter & Gamble and Cliff Bar, Phillips, which is
I remember
how
the Cliff Bar times. I remember, I remember you mentioned
Good stuff.
the Cliff Bars, yeah. But I
You're
definitely
right.
remember one that you didn't mention, Blue Man.
Oh, yeah. I think when we met, I might have been working at Blue Man Group. And so I
yes,
was there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Director of Internal Communications for Blue Man Group, the theater company.
Yeah.
Such, if you haven't seen their work, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've just had this opportunity to kind of look at how do you think about things and then articulate them either to yourself or to other people. That's, it's kind of been the foundation of my career is thinking about hard problems, figuring out how to articulate them, figuring out how to actually, make progress or action on a difficult but meaningful strategy. Love a good strategy, love a plan. And through all that, like I said, I decided when I was pretty young, I decided when I was in my 30s that I was going to retire when I was 50. And I think it's easy. And, this is something that if I happened to be on a podcast that spoke to people that were in their 30s, I would say, even if you're thinking about, sort of that FIRE lifestyle, financial independence, retire early, even if you aren't doing something that feels like it's mission driven for yourself, still work to be great at it because being great is more fun.
Good advice.
So
it really is.
It doesn't matter. Like you work at you work at Subway or maybe you're working for the man and you don't even believe what you're doing. Maybe you're helping launch vape pens. Who knows? Like still be great at it because you will have so much more fun if you get to think about hard problems and do big things.
Yeah. That's like a light bulb moment for talking to young people because everyone thinks of work so often say, oh, it's just work. I just spend this time here and then it's whatever. But really, that's the key piece. It's like, be great at it and you won't hate it.
Right.
Yeah,
It's more fun. Have fun.
that's it. It's more fun. And that
Yeah.
transcends cultures because, to the extent that I'm thinking about the people that I work with in Ghana, young people, et cetera, the mindset of work is not fun.
Right.
And so that's why we have such mediocre results in a lot of cases is because people don't think about it being fun. They just think about it as being an obligation, a means to an end, but you've just encapsulated the idea of what work needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, maybe you have to wear a uniform and you hate your uniform. Maybe, I mean, part of my career, my hours were 2 a.m. until doing math until 11 a.m.
Oh, wow. You're the
So
night shift.
this isn't right. This is not me speaking from some Pollyanna,
Yeah.
Everything was always perfect in my career. I worked a terrible shift,
Yeah.
right? You can't really hang out with your friends in the evening because you
Right.
need to be in bed.
Mm-hmm.
You are at work at sunrise. You were at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I rode the bus to that job. So
Oh,
I was riding the
wow.
bus at 1 a.m. to get to my job in downtown Chicago. So
Wow.
I absolutely get if you don't love what you do, maybe, you are, we were talking about migrants earlier, maybe you're a migrant worker and you're
Yeah.
working in an orchard or in a vineyard and it's
Mm-hmm.
hot. Like, I get it. Sometimes where you are doesn't feel physically comfortable, or
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, it's not mission driven, but you can still have fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can
Mm-hmm.
still be great.
Mm-hmm. 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 And do the
It's
job.
okay.
Yeah. And do it
Yeah.
well. I think
Yeah.
the bar for excellence. And we have so much mediocre that's been confusing us. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. People are
wow.
killing time.
Yes.
And I think that's the root of it for me,
Mm-hmm.
why I chose to wrap up a career that I loved
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that loved me back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I chose to end it when I did because I believe that this is probably going to be my only life, right?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I don't even know if I'm on the fence about reincarnation, but I don't know that I'll remember this
Yeah,
life. And so if
yeah,
this is the only life that I'm going to remember living,
yeah.
then if this is my one life, I want to make it as great as it can possibly be. I want to have an extraordinary, by my own definition, an extraordinary life. And so having this next chapter, living this next phase of being in my early 50s and getting to decide every single day, what do I do with that day? That's the best.
Yeah, that's clutch. Yeah, absolutely. So before you retired, did you know that you were going to be a retirement coach? And then now doing that and working in that business, what's it like working with clients? What kind of training did you do to prepare yourself at all? Anything like that?
I remember it was during COVID, and Cliff and I had a friend over. We were all sitting outside. I can completely picture the moment. And we were talking about how I think at the time we were 3 years away from retiring. And this friend has also had a really impressive career. I'm not going to name her, but she is somebody who often during Black History Month gets sort of held up as great Black Americans, which I'm super proud of her for that.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And so she's a great friend for asking hard questions.
Yeah.
And the kind of simple but hard question that she asked was, okay, so you're going to retire. What does Monday look like? And that that moment has actually become a foundation to my practice. It is one of the questions that I often ask my clients. So, okay, what does Monday look like? Let's start blue skying.
Mhm.
So that got me started in thinking about what was I actually going to do with, if this is my one extraordinary life, what was I going to do with it when I
Mhm.
had all this freedom?
Mhm.
And I realized that I did not have an answer.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
turned out Cliff did. It was, we're sitting there, she asked that question, and he's just like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I think that's it. And I was like, oh, dude, you're ready. Like,
Yeah. I
okay.
gotta catch up.
Yeah, I'm way behind. And so the work that I did to get myself ready to be comfortable when people ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" There's a big mindset shift when you can answer, oh, I work at Meta. I'm a senior director at Meta, right? I don't usually put that much stank on it, but,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
being able to say, like, yeah, I don't need to tell you anything else because you already know that I'm the stuff, right? Because
Right.
I work at this big
Right.
company
Right.
that is ruling the world and
Right.
I am crushing it there.
Yeah. Yeah. And mind you, they don't give senior director titles out very, very generously at that organization, which
No.
I've learned. So yes, that big stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
is considered the equivalent for people who are thinking about being on a corporate board. Being a senior director at Meta is considered the equivalent of being a senior vice president
Yeah.
at a smaller company.
Yeah.
And especially for me, obviously, I said I like and I'm very comfortable talking about money. I was a senior director in the part of the business that makes
All the
billion,
money.
with
Yeah.
a B,
Yeah.
dollars a year. So yeah, it was a big job and it made it so that I didn't have to say that much more to prove my worth.
Mhm.
If you live in a
Mhm.
culture that kind of values what you do, maybe at least as much, if not more, as who you are.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mhm.
so, right?
Mhm.
And so thinking about, okay, how's it going to feel when I tell people that I'm retired? And getting myself ready for people kind of don't know what to talk about with you anymore. Like, hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, where do you live? Oh,
Yeah.
Portugal. Oh, okay, what do you do? I'm retired. Oh.
How's the weather
It's
there?
a yeah, it's a little bit of a conversation killer, which
Yeah.
surprised me even as much as I prepared for it. So, honestly, the way that I prepared for being retired that led to me realizing that retirement coach could be a thing was a lot of counseling. Got an
Mm.
amazing counselor in Colorado. Love this guy, David. Amazing, amazing human, just super thought provoking. And through my work with him and through paying attention to conversations that I was having with friends as I was on my own journey, I realized that there was this gap in the coaching market, that there are life coaches, there are career coaches, there are somatic coaches, right? How does your body feel? What are you doing with your body? But no one that I spoke to, including lots of other coaches, had ever heard of a retirement coach, had ever heard of somebody who helps you stop the career and decide what does the next phase of your life look like. Are you going to be a yogi? Are you going to read all of the books? Are you going to, now some of the things that some of my clients are preparing for are coming to mind. I have a client who wants to become a bowling coach when she retires. I have
Mhm. Mhm.
another client who is going to be a candle maker,
Mhm. Mhm.
so
Mhm.
there just wasn't anybody who was doing that. And so taking that career, 25, 30 years of leading people, developing people, helping people think about what they wanted to do with themselves and how they were going to have an impact on the world. I talked with other coaches. I shared my experience. I actually did some barter work where I coached coaches on retirement and they were coaching me on
Coaching
developing this
skills.
practice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
what did I need to read? What did I need to think about?
Yeah.
And the feedback was that in general, whilst I could do a coaching program, it would basically teach what I had already learned through practice.
Yeah.
And then doing that kind of barter work is very much what's expected of coaches anyway, where you're getting your
Mm.
hours by
Sure.
coaching people,
Sure.
you're not charging them. And so built those skills a little bit while I was still working and then really ramped it up as far as what I was reading, what I was thinking about, the kind of research I was doing once I retired. And I'm very deliberate. I am still retired.
Mhm.
So I tend to only have 4 to 5 clients at a time. But it gives me time to do things like writing, reading, ruminating, having free conversations with people, getting new information, shaping the frameworks that make up my business.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. That's awesome.
I'm having so much fun. And again, going to our earlier conversation, like I get off of a coaching call and I want to do like the funky chicken around the room. Cause I'm just like, that
Like,
was amazing.
right. Like you're making progress and it's changing people's lives. So that's even more, the impact is so meaningful. Yeah.
Yes. Right?
Yeah.
And people are scared, it's
That's what
like
I was going to ask. It's like, are most people just afraid? Like, that's the first thing. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. And the fear, I have so much respect for the fear. If you have been doing something that you loved, hopefully, but even if you didn't love it, that at least made you feel validated, right? If you got to be the boss of something, which it can be really fun, if you knew where your next paycheck was coming from,
Mhm,
you didn't
mhm.
have to worry about, one of the things that I'll say is top of mind for me right now is the value of the dollar. I live in Europe. I work in, everything that I do is in the euro. So when the dollar is like a wild bull just bucking up and down. It's not great for me. Some days,
Yeah.
groceries cost 20% more than they did the day before. It's not fabulous.
Hello. Yeah.
Right. That's a very legit fear if you're going to move
Yeah.
abroad.
Yeah.
People are, I think, and I hear this, I see it, people don't always articulate it, but it comes up. People are afraid of being bored and lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those are the things that I think that preparation, it's just like, if you're thinking about when you're a teenager and you realized, oh, I want to be an electrician, I need to study this trade.
Mhm.
If you want to be retired, you don't just leap into it one day and all of a sudden you're retired and you have purpose and you know what you're doing. It takes some thought, it takes
Yeah.
some planning,
Yeah.
and everyone can be successful at it.
Yeah. I love that you said be successful at retirement. That's a really good thought.
Yeah, because you can retire and live,
Yeah.
but,
And
we know
decline.
the
Yeah,
difference.
we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
can be decline and there can be thrive. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. You might
Yeah.
survive, you might decline. I was reading about this earlier in the year that studies show that there is actually cognitive decline amongst people who retire. And I can imagine, they didn't have the reasons why, but I can imagine that some of that is that people aren't challenging themselves in the way that they were challenged by their work. So, we were talking earlier about learning a new language. For me, not only is that a part of being Portuguese, living in Portugal, but it's also part of like, okay, 50-year-old
Mhm,
brain,
mhm. Let's
let's do
do
something
this.
really hard, like learn
Yeah.
Portuguese.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right?
you're right. It's that I have friends that have learned it in our 20s. Yeah, it was work. It's the constant listening to it to get the constant, and that's the difference between Brazilian Portuguese and Portuguese and that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. Kudos to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
And there are a lot of Brazilians here, and there are days when I'm like, "No, it's now I'm learning 2 languages?
Yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
don't wanna.
Exactly.
I don't wanna say botardi to you and botard to you." It's like, "Oh, man, like, it's not fair." But no, it was a choice.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so yeah, the fear is very real, and, planning for that for myself has been important. And then I would say for anyone who is thinking about retiring, who has had a very hard charging or demanding career, going into it with systems and processes that
Mm.
support you,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's so important. And even for myself, this is the work that I do when I work. And I had to do a self evaluation probably did it after about 4 months, because I realized that my days were a little bit kind of happening to me instead of
Mm.
me driving my
Mhm.
days.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
And, if you're on vacation, it's great if your
Cool.
days happen to you,
Right.
right? You
Right,
go
right.
to the beach, next thing
Yeah.
you know, it's 6 o'clock, you're having an Aperol spritz, it's fabulous. But if this is the next 40, 50 years of your life,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you don't want to wake up and be like, oh, it was all Aperol spritzes and long lunches,
Yeah.
right? Or at
Right.
least I don't,
Right, 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 and
personally.
most people don't. That's the boredom. That's the potential loneliness.
Yeah,
Everyone can't just
it's the
find someone
early
to happen on.
decline.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
makes perfect
yeah.
sense. Yeah. Yeah. So, I wanna ask you about Glocal speak because you're speaking about learning a language. So, can you share a word, a phrase, or saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience and why or how you've come to value it as Glocal speak?
Yeah. So I was talking earlier a little bit about the culture of how people here greet each other and how people here say goodbye. The collection of words that people use to say goodbye here, it's one of my favorite things. And it feels, and I'll say all the words in a moment, but it feels like you are being handed off, whether it is a friend that you're saying goodbye to, or if you're leaving the store, it feels like you're being handed off with care. And that you will be welcome back when you see each other again. And so the collection, and it's not always in this order, is obrigada, assuming you've done some sort of transaction. So that would be thank you, right? Obrigada. Let's say it's the afternoon, boa tarde. So now you're saying good afternoon. Let's say you're parting from each other. You also might say com licença, which would be, right, with your permission. I'm going to go, so, right? So, right. So with license, so com licença. Depending on how close you are, you would say beijinhos, so kisses, right? Beijinhos, ciao, ciao, beijinhos. Ciao, which is like a casual goodbye. Right? And then you literally might do all of that all over again, right? So, and I learned this through our housekeeper, actually, initially, because she would get calls while she was here. Amazing human being, so generous, has taught me a lot of my Portuguese. And I would hear her get off the phone with her husband, and it would take 90 seconds. And afterwards, and I'm like, Ana, beijinhos, ciao, ciao, com licença, obrigada, com licença, ciao, ciao. It's just like, and she was like, she's like, what? Like, of course, right? And so that to me is just, it's the best. It makes me smile. It makes me feel like I'm part of the community. It makes me feel like somebody cared enough to give me a good goodbye.
Right. I like that. We got to adopt some new ways to carry each other out of our good, right? In and out. Yes. Delivering. Yes. I love it. So tell me about your mindset hack. How do you hack your mindset?
I have two things.
Yes.
And actually started these when I was still working because I found that my days, even when I worked, they were unwieldy. And so these are mindset hacks for people who work and for those who either are thinking about not working or who don't. So the two things that I have found work for me are, one, only have 3 things on your to-do list.
Wow.
And I know it's so tempting. You could just boil the ocean and put it all on a piece of paper, in a spreadsheet or whatever. You're not doing all that stuff today. You're not. Why are you making yourself feel bad by writing down, to not be hyperbolic, let's say your to-do list has 18 things on it.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's too much. And then at the end of the day, you feel terrible.
Because you didn't,
Right? So you're setting yourself up at the beginning of the day. If you do a to-do list and it has 18 things on it, you are setting yourself up for your future self to feel bad. I guess I'm going to give you 3 hacks. So also take care of your future self. Like, be kind to your future self. Buy toilet paper today so that your future self isn't left hanging, right?
I love that'd be so true. So true.
Right? Don't leave your future self in a bind. So I take care of my future self, and I actually get stuff done by only having 3 things on my to-do list. My brain knows that there's other things to do.
Yeah.
When one of those 3 things gets finished, is complete, I can scratch it off and put something else in its place. It'll always be there. That'll always be there, right? So that's one. And then 2, I'm a big believer in the science that shows that 15 minutes of reflection every day leads to happier, better rested, more productive people. And so I have a template that I've created for myself that allows me to reflect on yesterday from what was kind of the highs and what do I need to do better perspective, allows me to set my intention for today, start to be proactive for tomorrow. And on Mondays, I set a theme for the week. This week, I am going to every day work on either my craft, my work, or my hobby. Right.
Okay.
So it's either, in my case, that would be leather work, coaching, or learning about wine.
Okay.
Right. So that might be my intention for the week. So those things working in concert lead me to feeling more productive.
Yeah.
I accomplish the things that I say I'm going to accomplish. I'm a better friend because then the commitments that I make in a day, if I say I will have lunch with you today, I've learned that in Portugal, lunch at a minimum
3
takes 2.5 hours exactly.
Yeah.
And can go. I think we recently set a record where lunch was 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
So, again, taking care of my future self. That to-do list for that day was I exercised in the morning, I had lunch, and I think maybe I did laundry at the end of the day or something like that. But that's all you could commit to.
Yeah.
So those are my hacks.
Yeah. Those are great. I love them. Listen, folks, the show notes are going to be great. And I'll have links to the point in the conversation where she said this you can go back to. So that's just awesome. So even though you're retired, I still want to be mindful of your time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. One of my mottos is don't mess with my time, my money, or my sleep.
Hello. That's a model for life and longevity, right? So
yes,
indeed. Okay, so as we start to wrap it up, I want to ask, even you kind of started to allude to it and still being retired. What is new and next for you? Like, where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So, like I said, Portugal is, for all intents and purposes, it is home. When I'm traveling, I say, oh, I'm going home. I'm going to Portugal. So we will be here. And my expectation for the next 5 years is that we will be even more deeply embedded in the community. It's possible that we will have grown our investment in Portugal, whether that's in a business or in ways that we're giving back, maybe tutoring English. I know a lot of people here are realizing that it is the language of business, so wanting to support people in their own goals.
Yeah.
I will be fluent in Portuguese.
I love it. Yep.
Period.
You sure will.
Right. Yep. That's happening. And 5 years from now, I should actually have my Portuguese passport.
Ooh, okay.
And because that is part of what we're working towards right now.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. So usually I ask this question about what you do in your leisure time, if you're a reader, a watcher, or a listener. And, that applies to people who are like in this grind, but you're kind of in the let me plan my days, but they're my days kind of thing. So are you a reader, a watcher, a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens?
I am a reader and a listener.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever shared this with you before, but I actually grew up in a household that chose not to have a television.
Yes, I remember.
So, yes, I mean, my name is Serene. So, it wouldn't surprise people that I was raised a little bit by hippies. So, I don't have a TV habit, much to my husband's chagrin. So, I'm always reading at least 2, sometimes 3 books.
Yeah.
Usually it's a mix of like something that would be considered trash, something that is helping me grow, and then something that's like well-written and interesting. I just finished The History of the World in 6 Drinks.
Ooh.
And
that's interesting.
It was interesting. I'm recommending it with the caveat that it is written more from a Western perspective. I would not describe it the history of the world. I would describe it as perhaps the history of the Western world and how it touched other parts of the world in 6 Drinks. There were multiple elements of it that were fascinating, but one thing that was really interesting in there that might be very relevant to your audience is the relationship between slavery, sugar, and rum.
Huge.
And right?
Yes.
And I don't think people realize or think about how that was kind of this circle of you get slaves, they grow sugar, the sugar makes rum, you trade people for rum, and the cycle starts all over again. right? And the sickness of using people to create a product that will be used to get more people is just so, and the author did it,
Diabolical. It's
right?
diabolical.
Right? I was
Yes.
just like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah. And similarly with tea and
Yeah.
opium
Yeah.
and China.
Yeah.
And all of that was in there. It was so interesting, super nerdy, super, super
Yeah.
nerdy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the author was not trying to make those stories spicy, but
Oh, okay.
they're right,
You're right.
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 So
Right.
that was a good one. And then I listen to podcasts when I am doing other stuff. So I have an hour drive if I'm going to Lisbon. I have a big garden, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the podcast I'm listening to, one of them is Portuguese Language Lab.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
It's a good one.
how,
You're
yep,
learning.
yep.
Oh, but
I'm
that's good.
learning. And then, I believe that laughter is key to health. And so I have to admit that I listen to Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend.
Okay.
And it's so dumb, but sometimes smart things get said and then I repeat them. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are a couple of my listens and one of my reads.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Those are good. We'll pass those on to folks. You can also learn Portuguese, learn about drinks, and laugh a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I would add, and this is a book that I read when I was still at Meta, is, and now I'm going to get the number wrong, but I believe the book is called 4,000 Weeks. Have you read it,
I
this book?
haven't. I haven't. Hmm.
So 4,000 weeks, the time frame is the average human lifespan. This is probably in the Western world also. And the book is about productivity and how you think about your time. It's actually where I got the hack of only having 3 things on your to-do list because every single moment you are making a choice about what to do with your 4,000 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you don't make a choice, then choices are being made for you. And there are an infinite number of things that you could be doing with your time.
Yeah.
And so just how do you think about that? How do you get real deliberate about it so that you don't feel anxious about only having 4,000 weeks? Right? And so that's one that I would recommend for people who are thinking about, okay, how do I value my life? How do I value my time?
That's a great note to leave on because I'm looking at the cover and it looks like a retirement view. So it kind of
It
fits full
is.
circle. Yeah. I
Right?
love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well written,
Yeah.
very well written,
Yeah.
super thought provoking.
Lovely. Lovely. Serene, this has been so awesome. I have loved
My
catching
pleasure.
up. It's been a great conversation. I think you have said a lot of gems to leave with our audience. Do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share before we sign off?
I just would want to remind people, like, this is your life. You get to live it how you want to live it. So, again, be great, have fun, but be intentional.
Yeah.
This is the only one you're going to get.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com. Please check the show notes. You can look up Serene on her LinkedIn and find out how you too can start preparing for your retirement. There's limited space, as you just noticed. She doesn't take a lot of clients, but if you're special and she likes what you're doing to have fun, that's just me making it up. But all that to say, please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. And until next time, bye for now.